So I'm recording this directly after part 4, or part 3, and I was talking to another YouTuber. He is the he's the sin of lust for the 7 deadly sins on YouTube. Um, Here, let me find his channel. There we go. This is him. But anyway, I was just talking with him, and I was letting him know that over Discord he messaged me and asked me if he could do this what if, and I agreed to it because I actually like that someone took an interest in it. But there is one thing I did want to do. One thing I did want to do differently is thinking about it more with the way how Deku can use his quirk with bone. He can kind of use it like Momo's, how during a sports festival she could create a shield in her arm. So I'm gonna make Deku's quirk a little bit more versatile than, I want to say, strength based than he would. I know he's actually watching part 1 right now because me and him were talking. But let's see. I ended off with my mistake of Ida and Todoroki being switched around. Anyway, after that happened, let's do this. the That's it. They're going to the USJ. I have not had enough coffee today. Let's see. They're going to the USJ. And a lot of people are talking about their quirks, all this and that. However, Deku overhears a question that seems kind of confusing to him. Someone's asking Jiro about her quirk, because she can produce sound waves that are huge. And she's also got another quirk, is what someone asked her. But after that, whenever Deku is made paying attention to this, whenever Deku is paying attention to this, he actually gets nudged by Uraka, asking him, like, "Oh hey, are you okay, Deku? Like, you're not paying attention." And they kind of get back into reality. Oh, uh, but Deku gets jerked back into reality, and Uraka asks him that ask Deku why. Actually, I'm gonna pause this real quick. Alrighty, sorry everybody about that. I had to talk to the guy whose channel I just showed you contacted me on Discord, so I had to talk to him for a bit. He was talking about doing a collab, and he's probably the only one going to be watching this part, so look forward to that tomorrow. I'm gonna be doing that tomorrow. I should try and knock out this what if today. But anyway, Deku, he kind of he started explaining about his quirk, how his mom had telekinesis and his dad had fire breath quirk, and everyone's kind of confused because his quirk is vastly different from theirs. And he basically explains how his mom has the bone defect and how she essentially passed it on to him during pregnancy, but his quirk gene basically adapted to it and helped him live a normal life. And everyone's kind of confused and surprised by this because he went from being a happy, cheery attitude to kind of a dark, depressed one. Anyway, Aizawa, he hears this and he kind of just lets them all talk for a second because he kind of feels bad for Deku. But after a minute, he tells everyone to get out of the bus and that they'll be walking in the USJ. And 13, for the brief amount of time that she's able to explain her quirk, when it does, she basically tells them that quirks can be dangerous if used incorrectly. And Deku actually does listen to this because he can rip apart a cement wall with his claws. Like, if he barely hardens them, he can rip apart a cement wall. And that is no easy feat. That's probably about him ripping apart a cement wall is probably him about like 2% of his power. Because that's mostly just physical strength. His quirk, that's different. That's not his quirk at 100%. Anyway, so Shigaraki and the League of Villains pop up, and everyone gets kind of confused, and Deku asks Mr. Aizawa if he can go down there and start fighting. Aizawa reluctantly tells him yes. So Deku goes down there. He hardens his fist, he hardens his body, and he starts fighting. Now, Deku, he's actually using about 80% of his power. And I don't know if I explained it, but whenever he is at around 80%, he can maintain it for an entire day. But that's kind of like one for all because you can only use 80% of the quirk. The human body can only use 80% of its strength. Anything over 80% can actually damage the ligaments in your arms or your hand. And that's around, I want to say 90%. 100% is what Deku does with One for All. That's essentially it. But Deku here, since he's only going about 80%, he's actually tearing through a lot of the villains and taking down a lot. And you know that one guy, Aizawa, actually turned his quirk off where he can shoot stone bullets? That guy is. That whole firing squad is basically firing at Deku as hard as they can, as fast as they can. But Deku is just running through their bullets like nothing. Everyone is just, what the hell is this kid? And when going at 80%, he actually no, let's not do that. Whenever Shigaraki sees all this, he basically tells them that they need to teleport everyone away from the entrance. And they do that, but before they could, Ida and Todoroki were trying to get into the fight. They kind of do that thing they did where they try and help Bakugo, where they would make a ramp of ice and launch off of it. However, this time, Deku would be at the top of the ramp, and Ida would be running at him. Deku would basically army of two, like, toss him into the air out of the window. Because let's say this window was pretty high. That's what helps make up for it. But he would do that, and Ida would get out of there. But he'd have to. It would take him some time to get off the side of the building. And from there, Deku was falling. He falls and lands into the water, and he starts sinking, so he turns off his quirk. And he starts swimming to the boat. But Froppy helps him, gets him up there, and Jiro is also there. Now then, whenever this did happen, they start making up and trying to come up with a plan. Deku's plan is a bit less straightforward. He does this. He pulls out what looks like the bone in his arm and tries to make a spear out of it. And he tries to jump into the water and attack the villains. Now then, whenever he does jump back into the water, Froppy just grabs him onto the boat again and says that that's not going to work. So, Jiro comes up with an idea. So he essentially tries to. Because she's the one who got one for all in this series, because I don't really care. No one's ever really. I've never really seen people give her a quirk, so I wanted to do that. So she comes up with the idea that if she can use her sound waves in her feet or on the palms of her hands and jump with one for all. Because actually, let's say she has broken a limb when training with All Might. Because her quirk, yeah, I don't really want to get into the science behind it, but basically she's broken a limb and she doesn't want to use one for all at 100%, so she tries using her quirk. She starts rocking and shaking the boat a lot, but she's floating. And whenever she does do this, she's using a lot of stamina. But she's essentially able to float them over the water and back onto land. And Deku, he still has this bone spear in his hand, so he tries to fight off more villains. And this is when Shigaraki calls in the Nomu. Now then, Deku calls in the Nomu. Not Deku. Deku starts attacking the Nomu and doing all this. Alrighty. Well, anyway, Deku's. Crap, I don't know where I left off. Deku, anyway, with a spear in his hand, he begins to start trying to fight at the Nomu. And the Nomu starts fighting back with Deku. Deku, he would start fighting with the Nomu, and Shigaraki would start laughing and telling Deku that that's not gonna work. Because the Nomu has a regeneration quirk and a shock absorption. So Deku just laughs at he just laughs at Shigaraki for telling him this. And over the course of the fight, Deku, he starts his bones start well not that. Deku cranks it up from 80% to 90%. This is starting to get dangerous for him. because now he has to fire larger and bigger projectiles at the Nomu. And Shigaraki is watching this all go down, and he's just wondering, why is this kid doing this? This is cheating. But after that, Deku, he starts cranking it up more and more the power because he can't really defend the Nomu off. And whenever he does reach 100%, he gets, like I explained during the intro exam, he gets 6 times stronger, faster, more durable, and his spikes that were on his arms now they're not just on his arms; they're throughout his entire body. So he goes from having the spikes kind of pointing out of his arms to being a little bit more like this. And what I mean by this is his entire body, it's coaxed in bone, like right. It's all porcelain, kind of white, and Deku's just he has the claws, the arms, the spikes are in the arms. He just starts trying to rip into the Nomu as much as possible. He just tries to. Because Deku, remember, Deku knows quirks are physical abilities. He knows they're physical. There has to be a limit, so Deku's trying to find the Nomus. So he just keeps tearing through the Nomu as much as possible. To the point where whenever the Nomu does land a good hit on him and Deku goes flying back, as soon as Deku hits the ground, he breaks one of these spikes off. Deku's in pain. Deku cannot move because over the course of the fight, his ribs, his torso, his sternum, his spine, they've all been fusing together, so he cannot get up or stand. And by this time, because this fight's, Deku's just been trying to draw it out and do as much damage as possible to help All Might because he doesn't know his secret. All Might appears finally. All Might just sees the carnage that's going on. He just sees the villains, like as many villains as possible taken out. He sees. Oh crap! I forgot to mention Aizawa. He sees Aizawa just. He thinks Aizawa is dead. Because Aizawa just not actually no. Let's retcon that. Aizawa's actually doing fine because he's just been taking care of lower tier villains. But he does have a couple. He does have a couple wounds, but they're just like occasional cuts and bruises. Because he has been trying to help Deku by turning off the Nomu's quirk, but he'd always get punched in the face. After that, so essentially, Deku has to completely power down his quirk. And whenever he does, he cannot get rid of the spikes. Because, crap. I don't remember what time limit I put on his 100% mode. But let's just say, whatever the time limit was, Deku went past 100% to try and hold off the Nomu. And actually was doing a little well, but it's just that it was draining too much. It was too draining on his body. Because eventually everything would start fusing together more and more. So Deku would basically not be able to be paralyzed. But not. He couldn't move paralyzed. Not. He can't. Actually, that's not any better. Deku wouldn't be able to move his. Deku just. He's laying there. Barely conscious. He can't move. That's better. And after All Might completely obliterates the Nomu with his 1,000,000% smash, Cementos tries to help All Might by putting up the wall Jiro tries to go over and like make sure All Might's okay, but they realize that Deku, because Cementos didn't really pay attention to Deku. They thought he was unconscious, but Deku, he could see All Might slowly deflating. And whenever Jiro went over to check and see if Deku was fine, she realized that he found out, but he did pass out whenever they tried to help him stand up. Anyway, we skip to Recovery Girl's office. They're all talking. Deku gets the explanation that One for All is a booster quirk, and that Jiro explains that it's essentially that lightning that's around her body sometimes. And I say Jiro because she knows how to use a quirk. She knows how to let it flow throughout her body. But she's still learning how to. She's still building up the muscle to use it. Because I don't really know the difference between. Actually, how would that work? Never mind, let's not get into that. Deku's told all this and all that. And essentially, All Might talks about how, like, if he would have thought about it, he could have given One for All to Deku, but Deku would just tell All Might that that's a bad idea. All Might wouldn't really understand, but after explanation about how whenever he does use his quirk at 100% and starts fusing his bones together, All Might would understand. And I don't know how long this part is. Oh wow, that's long. But alrighty. So so far this is Deku's. Essentially, this is called Assault Mode. This is what he can use his quirk at because he hasn't perfected it completely. But this is going to be different. Alright, well, that is going to be part 4. I thought I would get to it in this part, but it looks like the sports festival is going to have to be its own separate video, along with the 2 weeks before the sports festival. Alrighty then. This is Minuki signing off for part 4.